So what's the best thing about Ignition, Jan? And I'm saying it's the fact that the Ignition platform is a very versatile platform. You can build almost everything. And then of course they ask the other question, so what's the worst thing about Ignition? And I normally say it is that Ignition is a very versatile platform. You can build almost everything.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 1 of the unofficial Ignition podcast. My name is Jonas. Today we're going to talk about the most frequently asked questions we get when we talk with companies that are curious about Ignition. I am joined by Jan, the CEO of Enuda. And Jan, let me start by asking you, Ignition is not a new SCADA system, but it almost seems like it is a new SCADA system because we get approached by a lot of companies that are curious about this new platform,
Yeah.
But why do you think Ignition is in this state right now, and why do people look into it?
I think there are so many things going on around us in general that force, especially larger organizations, to have a look upon what they're actually doing. What I hear from the people that we talk with is that very often it's driven by business needs coming out of a lean process, or in general wishes to or needs for working more efficiently or being more productive. So they are looking for solutions that can support these ideas. So very often it's coming out of a lean process, simply. A lot of internal focus on processes and the way we do things, and how do we get more flexible and more agile in general in these organizations. So that spurs them to having a look into their overall IT platforms as well.
And then they find Ignition as a new solution to a old SCADA world.
Correct.
And what do they usually ask you?
I would say normally the discussion starts around a general discussion about Ignition as a platform. We are very keen on calling it a platform, not a software solution. So we talk initially a lot about the modules, the way the modules are built up. It's like a Lego system where you can put modules on top of each other, or whichever way you want to put them. So we talk about the way it's built with modules, and we talk about the very transparent licensing costs for these modules, which is a unique selling point for Ignition in itself. That's very unusual. So I would say that's where we start, the modules in general, and the licensing cost for these modules.
And then after people have figured out that it's pretty transparent what they're going to pay for this, what do they think about Ignition? What do they get into after that?
The first reaction is normally that, wow, this is very transparent, which is in this line of business very unusual. Try to have a look at other competing platforms or competing systems. You won't find anything like that. So that's very unusual. And they very much appreciate this transparency, this openness and this transparency. Then from there, it's normally taken from this very abstract level down to a more specific level. So they're asking, what's in it for me? That's what they ask. So they say, okay, now we understand the model in general. What would we need?
Right.
What kind of modules would be necessary for our business needs, for our processes, for our business in general? Yeah. So that's normally the second step.
And how do you approach that question? Well, what do you show them first?
A good example from last week, we were sitting in a workshop, full day workshop with a client, and they have a wastewater treatment plant where they want to have the entire process in Ignition. And we simply started by saying, okay, so this entire process consists of several smaller processes, like nested into the overall plant. So we just started with one of them, just took out one part of the process, a small pump station, and built that in Ignition. So instead of taking the whole thing, you just pick something as small as possible and build that and see how that works, and you can compare that to what they have in their existing systems today.
So trying to get some part working and then the next part, and then until you have like a something that actually does something.
Yeah, that's what we normally say to people. That's the recommendation I offer all the time. Start as small as possible. It is very, very easy to get very enthusiastic about things. We have a tendency to overcomplicate things. And therefore I prefer that we simply start with something small and make a proof of concept. Does it work, and how does it work? Because it's easier to scale something small than actually make something big working from the get-go.
Right. So when you've answered a few questions and they get comfortable with Ignition, what are they most impressed by? What do they take with them and talk about in their own company?
So from the initial talks we have, I would say that there's a number of priorities or top priorities that they as take-home points. The very transparent way it's built up with modules and the license cost for each module, that's very much appreciated. So that's one thing. The fact that it's an open platform, it's not proprietary, which are the case for other similar systems. So it's open. You can connect to open standard SQL data sources. The connectivity in general, I know we're going to talk about that later, which can be a challenge, but basically you can connect to everything and anything. That's a fair point also. And then also the versatility of the platform. So that's a very frequent question I get at the end of any meeting. So what's the best thing about Ignition? Yeah,
Right.
and I'm saying it's the fact that the Ignition platform is a very versatile platform. You can build almost everything. And then of course they ask the other question. So what's the worst thing about Ignition? And I normally say it is that Ignition is a very versatile platform. You can build almost everything. So that's normally the take-home points. They say, oh, okay, so basically we can use this platform for our business needs now and in the future, which is the case, yes. So the transparency, the price module, the openness of the platform, the versatility of the platform, and then the fact that you can actually without, or let's say maybe not without, but at a very, very limited cost, you can start out, you can test it, you can get a proof of concept without investing a lot in big systems.
Great. That is it for this episode. Next Monday, we're going to talk about SCADA systems as a whole. What has changed? Where do they come from? And how do they fit into the world that we live in today? Thank you, Jan, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.